Hey guys, welcome back to Universes Beyond. I've got quite a unique video today, but an incredibly important one. It's something which I think you'll all resonate with, and something that's actually bloody difficult to do in the Magic the Gathering world, and that's to talk about the hardest decision a player has to make in Magic the Gathering, in my opinion, and hopefully how you can avoid this altogether. So today I'm going to be giving you a real world example as to what that tough decision is and what we can do to identify it, how we can potentially fix it, and then how we can avoid it altogether. And that decision today is, when is it the right time to hang up your gloves on a deck and specifically dismantle a deck? And so for me, I've got a commander deck. Actually, I'll put it over here. I've got a commander, which if you would have watched my recent deck tech with Celeste, I've already stuck the commander and about 15 cards into that deck. And this video is all about how I came to the conclusion that this commander deck, after years of building, is just not doing what I want it to do. And fundamentally, how did I make a decision as to when was the right time to dismantle this bastard? All right, so what deck am I talking about? I'm talking about Gandalf the White. So in my Celeste video, you'll have seen that I spoke about Gandalf the White quite highly, and that's because I thought that Gandalf the White, and I still think Gandalf the White, is an awesome card, right? And so for me, I'm a Magic the Gathering and a Lord of the Rings fan, and when this set came out, it was an absolute home run. Now, I have 20 Magic the Gathering command decks. I'm not embarrassed in the slightest to say that. I love my Magic the Gathering decks. But Gandalf the White was one that I immediately, back in November or December 2023, decided to build. And I've been building it ever since. I've played probably at round about the mark of about 60 plus games with Gandalf the White. If you think about a game, at bracket 2 to bracket 3, which is the level that I play at, lasts about, on average, an hour and a half. You're talking like, 90 hours of gameplay that I've played with this guy. And I have decided that this deck is no more, and he is better suited to be in the 99 of other decks. And so how did I get to this conclusion? How can you guys hopefully get to that conclusion easier as well? And how can we basically avoid this altogether so you guys don't have to feel the amount of pain I've had to feel up to this date. And my play group know that I've gone through this pain because I've been trying to get this guy to work for months and months and months, and it's just not worked. Now, I apologize in advance. I'm using this card because I can't be bothered to edit words over the top of the video. And so I'm going to use one of my, well, this is a fake cutout Infinity token. I just kind of cut this out of a TMU board thing. So anyways, right, I'm going to just I'm going to write up in some old school handwriting the points that I'm trying to make. So I apologize in advance for my handwriting. So firstly, what I wanted to talk about is, why is it difficult? So I think the first thing is, it's difficult. Oh God, is my board even going to work? Is the bond. So I think firstly, when you pick a commander to build around, you're picking it on a couple of factors. Well, in my case, a couple of factors. Firstly, the mechanics of the card are strong enough in itself to actually warrant building a deck around. So for me, you have to have a couple of things that's gonna keep the deck interesting and throw a couple of curveballs out there. Now, Gandalf the White is very much meeting that criteria, because not only does it have flash itself, it also gives you legendary creatures, legendary spells and artifact spells flash. It also doubles the ETB and the LTBs of your legendary permanents or artifacts that trigger on your legendary permanents and artifacts, but it can be any permanent entering or leaving the battlefield that triggers an ability of a legendary permanent or artifact. Gosh, that didn't come out right. Anyways, so basically, Gandalf the White is a very, very cool card on paper. Now, the route that most people took Gandalf the White was artifacts. Artifact creatures, just jamming it full of artifact creatures. And for me, there was another reason why I built Gandalf the White, and that was because he's one of my favourite characters in all stories throughout the history of the world, right? So Lord of the Rings, one of my favourite things ever, and Gandalf the White is awesome in that. And so for me, I wanted to build him as synergistic as I could to the original kind of story. So I wanted to build him basically helping an army of humans. And so what I tried to do was just build a deck that was just built around humans and LTBs and ETBs, and essentially maximizing his value. But also I thought one of the coolest things about this is that every turn I can basically leave all my mana up and then play my spells and artifacts on other people's turns. And so for me, I didn't need to do anything on my turn, and I could leave it and then just basically surprise people every single turn, which was a cool thing in principle. Now, so the bond with this commander was very high. I liked the coolness of the commander, and I also, the second thing is, in terms of the bond, you put a lot of time into building this deck. So this brings me to my second point, which is, here we go, investment. Oh. Sorry about this, guys. Handwriting's terrible. Investment with a line. So investment is twofold here, right? First point is the cash. Okay, so we know that building a commander deck is expensive. You have to buy lots of cards, unless you've got them sitting around, and if you do, good for you. But the likelihood is you're gonna have to buy at least, I don't know, 20 cards to refine a deck, at least. In Gandalf's case, I had to buy probably about most of the deck, right? So it was a large cash investment, and it's also a time investment. You spend months building this thing, refining this thing. Sometimes it takes, it's days until you figure it out. You might take a new deck to your game store and you might figure out that actually after a couple of games, it's not right. But for me, because Gandalf's so cool, it's such a pivotal figure in the franchise that I love, and also I think it's a really cool commander. I have basically spent years trying to refine this deck, and it just hasn't worked. And so I've spent years in terms of investment, and I've spent cash. So for me, I've become a stubborn bastard because I don't want this deck to fail now. And this brings me to my last point as to why it's difficult to make the decision to dismantle, and that is defeat. Oh God. Specifically, admitting defeat. So for me, this deck is an interesting one. I built it in a number of different ways. Firstly, starting with just lots of Lord of the Rings creatures, as many as I could. Most of them weren't as powerful as I wanted them to be, and so I then upgraded to get some expensive humans. And then over time, I kind of moved away from that because even that wasn't working good enough. So I went and bought some cards that were not as thematic, and then ended up with a deck that didn't do the thematic stuff that I wanted it to, and it wasn't still doing the cool things that I wanted it to do. And so I almost was at a tipping point where I decided that it just wasn't right. I had things like, so if I go through this deck, oh damn, there we go, perfect example. I bought Bezer, right? Well, actually, I traded it with a friend at my LGS, one of my play group. But I got Bezer. Bezer is like a $20 card, right? So Bezer is an awesome card, but in regards to what I wanted to do with Gandalf, which is building a human LTB or ETB deck, it's an elemental elk. Now, despite that, I did think it was a cool enough card to put in Gandalf the White. but it wasn't the thing that I wanted to do with it. And there's lots of instances of that. Like, I've got some cool, let's have a look. You know, I've got a couple of gods in here. Basically, there's just some stuff. I've got a couple of Doctor Who cards, which are really cool. There's just some stuff that I've got in here that I just don't think are quite right anymore. And so that's fundamentally what's made my decision here, is that I have only won out of those games I mentioned earlier, you know, 60 games. I've probably won twice with Gandalf. Now, you could probably say that's bad deck building, and you're probably right for thinking that. However, I always use a structure of deck building which is pretty standard. I put in kind of 12 to 14 pieces of ramp. I put in 12 to 14 pieces of card advantage. I put in generally 38 lands so that I don't miss my land drops when I need them. I run some board wipes, a couple of board wipes. I run 10 pieces of spot removal. And Gandalf actually, because of the ETBs and LTBs and doubling up on those triggers, actually doubled up on most of those things. So you can probably say that I had 20 pieces of card advantage because I was getting double that as long as Gandalf was down. I was getting double the amount of spot removal and all of those different things. It just did not work. And it did not work because of three things. Now, before I continue, guys, make sure you hit that sub button because this video is very unique to me. At Universes Beyond, we do all these sorts of unique and weird videos, but we're trying to do something unique on the internet. And so hit that sub button. It means a lot to us. And let us know what you think in the comment section below. Do you resonate with any of this? Anyways, back to the video. How do you decide? So what were my deciding factors as to why I have taken, or I'm in the process of taking Gandalf the White apart? You can see that there's probably about 20 sleeves here. Oh wait, no, there's quite a few sleeves that I've taken cards out from, and I'm in the process of completely dismantling this. In fact, after this video, I'm going to unsleeve this bad boy, use the sleeves for something else, and use the cards in something else. And that brings me to my point. How do I decide? And I think the first thing is fun. Are you actually having fun with this deck, right? Like, and that's dependent on your bracket, right? Like the bracket you play in. It might be that you're playing super high-powered brackets. If that's the case, are you getting enough kind of fun out of it? Is it giving you enough synergy? Are you doing enough on your turn? I generally, on my turns, want to be drawing an additional. I want to have 2 cards advantage in a turn, right? So if that's drawing my card on my turn, I want to draw another card for a different means. If by turn kind of 3 or 4, I want to consistently be drawing at least one more card around a full turn, so that I've got stuff in my hand that I can play and it's consistently fun. The second thing is, in terms of fun, is it giving you the synergistic and the kind of thematic flavour? I'm going to just swig this before I continue. Yorkshire Gold, best tea in the world. Also, how sick is this? It's a freaking egg mug. Anyways, if that doesn't warrant a sub, I don't know what does. Anyways, the other fun thing is I tried to build this in a way which was reminiscent of the story, right? Gandalf the White leading an army of humans, like popping up out of nowhere and just completely demolishing all evil, vanquishing the earth of evil. It didn't do either of those things. And so for me, the fun factor was not there. It was fun at points. When I won a couple of games, that was fun, but that was mainly because I played against my friends when they were also deck building and their decks were crap. So anyways, I can't say that was because Gandalf was great. It was likely because the other decks weren't as great. And that brings me to my next point, wins. Are you getting enough wins out of this deck? like on average, right, you should be winning at least, I think you should be winning 1 out of, let's say, 3 games. I think you should be winning 1 out of 3 games, or 1 out of 4 games is okay. I think 1 out of 4 games is okay. It's I'd say I'd say 25% win rate is still on the lower end for me. I want to be winning 1 out of 3, but I think 25% win rate is fine. If you're playing like me, if you're a sad sack and loser, right, like me, where you played 60 games and you've won 2, it's safe to say that it's not doing the thing that you wanted it to do. And by the way, I'm very aware that Gandalf the White can be built in a really broken way. What I'm saying is, in my instance, I don't want to build it in an artifact heavy, almost like bracket 4 level deck. I wanted to build a fun, janky human matters deck that has lots of cool things, and it didn't do what it needed it to do. And so for me, I didn't get the fun that I was expecting from it, and I didn't get the wins. And then lastly, and this I think is the most important, right, as to why you should make a decision as to whether or not it's the time to dismantle, is there something, oh crap, I'm not going to fit this all on. Oh, look at that handwriting. Something cooler. Is there something cooler, right? What do I mean by this? I mean, is there another deck that you've been trying to build that could use the cards from this deck, right? So from Gandalf, is there a deck that you're building that you think, damn, I've already got 15 cards and it's in this deck, right? Or even 1 or 2 cards, or 3 or 4 cards, right? Like in this instance, I took out, I think it was, well, how many sleeves have I got here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards I took out of this guy. And I took the commander out, that's why it's in a clear sleeve. I took 9 cards out of this deck to go straight into my Celeste deck. And why did I do that? Because Celeste is now probably my funnest commander deck that I own, at least at this moment of recording. I'm winning games. It's given me probably about 50 to 60% win rate at the moment. Actually, I think more than that. I think it's probably about 70% win rate. Anyways, but I needed lots of cards that blink and flicker, which Gandalf had lots of because he was trying to get ETBs and LTBs, so I was trying to double up on that, so I needed lots of blink and flicker cards. I also wanted some cool ETB cards that reanimate from the graveyard, and also Gandalf did that. Now, you know what's also cool is doubling up on those abilities, and Gandalf does this himself. And so for me, I realised that Gandalf is cool and he's awesome, but he's better suited in the 99 of another deck. And so this brings me to my last point. Something cooler was Celeste, right? So I had this other commander that wanted to basically do lots of discarding and then reanimating from the graveyard, and then having some cool into the battlefield triggers. And so Gandalf was perfect for that because it would double up on Celeste's abilities. It also doubles up on Celeste's counters abilities. So if something enters from the graveyard, it will put a +1 on each of my creatures. But Gandalf will see that and double the +1, so I get +2 for each time something enters. Anyways, I'm getting off track, but I love that deck. It's bloody awesome. But the point I'm trying to make is that I wanted to build around something else, and Gandalf was facilitating that. And so without me having to go and spend X amount of money, right, buying new cards, I already had cards in a deck that I wasn't having fun with. And so the moral of the story is I've dismantled Gandalf. I've put the curtains down, as they say, and I'm no longer playing Gandalf the White as a commander deck. Now, how can you avoid this altogether, right? I've spent hundreds of pounds at this point, so hundreds of dollars on this deck. I have spent months and years, in my case, with Gandalf the White. How can you avoid this altogether? And there's 2 ways to avoid this. Firstly, I will just say, for me, I quite like having physical cards and going to my LGS and playtesting physically. I don't think this is the best way to do it. There is two ways you can do this, and I'm going to show you both of them. Firstly, use a deck builder like Architect, right? So, how the hell do you spell this? Architect. I think it's cool. I think it's spelled like that. Anyways, Google Architect. So, Architect is a deck builder, and you can just go on there. It's absolutely free. You create an account, you deck build, you can add in cards, you can take out cards, so you can basically create your own deck on Architect, right? It will give you stats, you can refine it, and you can make sure that it looks like it's doing the thing that you want it to do. And then, once you've got your deck in Architect, you've then got two things that you can do, right? And, well, actually, no, one thing you can do in two different ways. Playtest, right? So without actually physically going out and buying the cards and buying the sleeves, buying the deck box, assembling that deck, then going down to the LGS, like me, as a bloody, a buffoon, right? And playing 60 games before you realise that it's not doing the thing that you want it to do, you can playtest. Now, you can playtest in two different ways. You can playtest over spell table. Oh god. Table. Then spell table is an official tool owned by Wizard, where you can basically you can play games with physical paper magic over spell table. But talking specifically to Architect, if you've got a strong enough computer, you can actually click on Architect's playtest, and then you can just basically share your screen and play your deck over spell table using your screen. So that's one way to do it. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but the easiest way to do this is to build your deck over Architect or Moxfield, export that deck as a text file, and then go over to Untap. Oh god. .in. Well, I'll drop this in the video description. Untap.in. Now, Untap.in is a completely virtual tool, not owned by Wizards, but it doesn't matter. It's a tool where you can just take your deck, you upload it in there, and then you can just play totally virtually with other players, and you can completely playtest your decks. And it is absolutely awesome. Lots of my play group have playtested their decks over here, and instead of them wasting money, they're just playing their deck and they're figuring out whether or not it actually works for what they want it to do before making the investment, before spending the time, and before realizing actually it's not quite the commander you hoped it to be. So if it's not fun, if you're not getting the wins you want, and there is something cooler, in my example, Celeste, then just dismantle it, man. You can always like pull it together again later, right? Like, as long as you keep the cards, you can always just give it another shot later down the road. But it's okay to admit defeat, and it's okay to try again. Anyways, this is Universes Beyond. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit that sub button, and make sure that whatever you're doing moving forward, you stick with us at Universes Beyond, because we're going to make sure that we're bringing you unique content, and we're making sure that you guys are having the best times in your Commander games in Magic the Gathering. Anyways, hopefully you got some value from this. See you on the next one. Peace.